Everybody, Ryan's just finished Virginia's book. Honestly, I'm 3/4 to 80% done with Virginia's book, and I want to throw up. The harrowing life of this lady, wherever she turned, the stuff about her own family is maybe want to puke the most. And Ryan's going to give us his thoughts on that. Andrew Loney's calling for Prince Andrew to be arrested. The heat is on that parasite. And the multitude of other men that Virginia has made allegations against. Who are they? Why are they getting away with it? Why is the mainstream media not reporting on them? We're going to be doing a deep dive into all of this, folks. And Ryan's links, his store. You can get all kinds of cool stuff by supporting his work at his store in the description box if you're watching on replay. And I'll also put it in the live chat right now. Huge thank you for coming on, brother. I imagine you must be as dazed as me right now, coming fresh off Virginia's book.
Well, I had to put it down after about 8 chapters, which is not a lot. I had to put it down and just go do something else and then come back to it. I had heard most of her, like from about 15 onward, I knew about all of that, all the abuse, all the, but from about 7 years old to 15, I knew less about, and it's something. It's hard to stomach. But then you start to realize why someone would continue to hang around Maxwell and Epstein. That situation was, I mean, no worse. It's probably better, actually. At least you had nice things, you know. Like she'd been abused her whole life.
And it's those contradictions, those cross currents that run through her mind that she revealed. She said she's in this monstrous pseudo-parental Epstein G-Max relationship, and as monstrous as it is, she's also looking to seek their approval and find the normalcy she never had as a kid.
Yeah, and Epstein knew this because that was the situation for a lot of the girls that they farmed, for lack of a better word. And he didn't care. He just cared about her obedience. He didn't care about her. He did like that she did what he said and would read the room and stuff. She had that skill, but she was really seeking any kind of approval like that. I could do well at that. And when you learn her background, like other than her little brother, there was no stability in her life. And Epstein actually threatened her with that, put a picture of him going to school, let her know very early on, like, we know where your brother is. Didn't say he was going to do anything to him, just said, we know where your brother is. But why would you make that known unless? But that feeds into, yeah, would Epstein blackmail? Yeah, he did. He got leverage on people before he let them into his front door. I mean, her own father, I don't know what we can say on YouTube. It's graphic.
Well,
but,
we can,
you know,
we can say what she alleges against him, and that is that he did all the worst things possible you can imagine to her, and then traded with his buddy Forrest, who they called Uncle Forrest, who had a stepdaughter, and they were trading daughters. And she was talking about all the orifices that were violated, and then, you know, Uncle Forrest has a come to God moment, gets her on the floor on her knees, as she's been so many times before to do you know what, and then says, I've found God, this is all your fault.
Yeah, you're the Jezebel harlot. Like, oh, the little 7-year-old tempted you, huh? Play a little bit more than cuddling with daddy. And hide the finger at night, and then, you know, Forrest raped her in the bathtub. And just, oh, look, we got to wash you real well right here between your legs. It's just disgusting. And the women knew. The only time Forrest's wife was really perturbed is when she thought that he got the daughter pregnant. He didn't, but he could have. She's in North Carolina now. Yeah, they started abusing her so early. And when the doctor said, oh, her hymen's missing, she said, oh, that's from horseback riding. No, it wasn't.
And she was at the doctor's constantly because of UTI problems. And even years later, when the dad comes to visit, when she's got her own family, the dad starts grabbing her hand, holding her hand, trying to grind dance with her. The husband is freaking out, and then starts showing her naked images on his phone. And they're like, what is going on? Just, they got to get him out of the house. Her husband's about to unalive this guy.
He also just beat the crap out of her in a camper just with his fist. As soon as she said in a loud enough voice that others could hear, as if they didn't know, what he was doing, he just beat the piss out of her. And they all just acted like nothing had been said and nothing had been seen.
Yeah, when she was still a kid, she was getting walked away from a party. I think they're out in the forest or something. And the dad cottons onto this, pulls up drunk, jumps out, starts screaming, you little beep, you little beep. And she decides to just say back to him, just because you've been effing me since I was a kid in front of the family. And then he beats her up. Nothing happens. Nothing changes. Just like normalized.
They end up sending her to grow together or growing together, which was shut down, by the way. That school no longer exists, but it was just one of these like tough love, weird religious schools that just abuse children. And she kept constantly running away, and then that, all the abuse leads to narcotics and abusing herself and making more and more poor decisions, constantly trusting the wrong people. Some people helped her. I think there were like 3 total in her life that didn't want to have sex with her. One of them was gay. And everybody else took advantage of her. And she got to the point like, it was my only value, sex. That's what she started thinking.
I know. I mean, when she's like escaped from that place, and that guy who was like a construction worker or something picked her up and said he had a debt to go and resolve. Will you come with me into this hotel room? As soon as they get in the room, bam, pins her down. He's got a gun in her mouth, all this stuff. And she only escaped because a call comes in. She's listening to the call as he's walking away outside. And when the conversation gets so faint, she realizes at a good distance she can run. She gets the hell out of there, but then she's on the street, gunmetal in her mouth, just bruised and battered by this freak. And who pulls over in a limo?
The worst person possible.
Oh, Eppinger.
That wasn't his first victim. He finally went to jail. He got arrested in Germany for trafficking children out of what do you say?
Transport.
I forgot the pseudonym for the T word, but for moving them around out of Czech Republic.
Yeah, good.
But he only got like 21 months in jail. That's what happens when you're that wealthy. Like, that's all you're gonna get. And he knew Epstein, and he knew Burnell, he knew that whole circle, he knew Haddad, he knew all of those French pedophiles and things too. So and he traded her off. This one is like, okay, satisfy my friends. She just never got a break. I think the only solace she had was around animals. She started, I guess she read Black Beauty when she was really little, which is a book told from the perspective of like a horse, how horses intuitively feel emotions and stuff. She believed in all that. She had to. And then she worked at an aviary place where she really did love like parakeets and stuff. You often see them in her pictures. She's got her little birds and things. But animals are people who either have nothing to love or no one loving them, often develop overly loving relationships with animals, where they're completely in love with their dog or bird or whatever, even though it's an animal. They think they treat it like a person because they need it, and it's okay to love an animal, but not like a person. Like, that's not normal. That's because you're lacking actual love in your life.
And they view the animal as somebody that
they have no one to love them anymore, so they fall in love with cats.
They view the animal kingdom as having animals in it that are not going to harm them like adults have harmed them. Mm-hmm. And we've got a lady in the chat, Judy, is asking about Trump. Virginia in the book puts Trump in a good light. She says her dad's got a job through Trump. She meets Trump. She's thinking about babysitting people through Trump. And later on in the book, she also says that Trump is documented as kicking Epstein out when he hit on an underage girl at Mar-a-Lago that was a client of his. Ryan can perhaps expand on that. But I don't think Virginia would be happy. Well, I don't think Virginia would be happy right now with the feds sitting down with Maxwell and not sitting down with the survivors, and G-Max getting lined up, being put in a cozy prison and being lined up to get out early. I think Virginia would be furious at Trump and Kash Patel and Bondi and the rest of them. This is a huge slap in the face for the survivors.
Trump was not mad about the flirting with underage girls. He'd known that about Epstein for over a decade. The dispute was over competition over property, where Trump had a Russian backer and Epstein had Les Wexner. They're both bidding on the same property. And Epstein's so arrogant, he actually took Trump to go look at it, like to rub his nose in it, like Wexner and I are about to buy this. And then Trump was acting on behalf of the Russian oligarch who was in the middle of a divorce. His name was Dmitry. And so he was just offloading stuff into assets so his wife couldn't take half his stuff and then was just going to buy it back later as a favor. One of the favors was this home, and Trump ended up getting the property and selling it for, I think he got it for around 45 million and sold it for around 95 million. Y'all can look up that it was around that, something like that. And it was being sold by Abe Gossman, who was in trouble for something else. So it was kind of a fire sale, and they both wanted it. And prior to him owning it, Wexner had already owned it, so he was trying to get it back. And this is one of the ways that Wexner used to pay Epstein, because what Epstein was doing is he was getting huge tax rebates by laundering money through his companies in the Caribbean islands, which is mostly St. Thomas. That's where the government is, in the Virgin Islands. And so he had a lot of them on the payroll. What he would do is he would pay the first ladies huge salaries, so he's not actually paying the governor, he's paying his wife. And he did that with Cecile and a lot of the people, Stacy Plaskett and all the brass in St. Thomas. St. Thomas had this rule, or the Virgin Islands had this rule, where you could get up to a 90% tax rebate if you just invested $100,000 and had 11 employees in the VI, which was easy for him. And so Wexner would save hundreds of millions by getting 90% tax rebate. So he would push it through Epstein's LLCs. Anyway, one of the ways he would pay him was he would gift them, either just gift him a house, or he would go in, they set up a company with just Wexner and Epstein were the only employees in New Albany, Ohio, for example, where they built a whole subdivision, and they would buy a house with that company, and then Wexner, they'd flip it, or Wexner would just buy it back for twice what it was appraised at. And then Epstein would make a bunch and be like, well, Wexner didn't pay him. He just paid for a house, and that Epstein gets, and then buys the house from him a couple of years later. And the reason for the couple of years is to avoid capital gains tax. So if you claim you lived in it, you can avoid the capital gains tax. And then he'd buy it back for far more than what it was worth. What he's really paying for is the access he had in the Virgin Islands for more tax evasion. And this explains why he gets a mansion in New York for only $20,000. Some people often say $1. It was $20K. That's still nothing. It was worth 50 to 70 million. Used to be a school. And I think Epstein enjoyed that this used to be, little kids used to go to school there. He even had them dressed up in school uniforms. And he had the adjacent apartments were owned by his brother. His brother's a real estate agent, so that's not, Mark had to have known what Jeff was doing. But I believe Virginia only stayed in one of those apartments once. But they were often housing girls from MC Squared, formerly called Karen Models, started in Tel Aviv, and then they had a branch in Paris, and that's when Jean-Luc Brunel takes over, and they opened one in Miami, one in New York. And a lot of his models that he would gather from like Ukraine, Poland, Czech Republic would be in these Mark Epstein houses. So they'd actually stay in the big house with Giuffre on the 5th floor. They would stay in the adjacent places. And a lot of shenanigans happened in those homes. One girl was murdered once, and that was a big mystery. It all just went away. And often when you say, well, who went to the New York house, you got to look when Ehud Barak was visiting, he would go in the adjacent houses too. Epstein's not even in those houses. And there's only one reason to go visit an MC squared house in person. And we know Ehud Barak is first of all, he's a monster as the prime minister of Israel that murdered Palestinians, Lebanese. He's just the same as all the rest of them. Guy was like Dick Cheney level brutal with the choking and the anal, this and that, grapes. And I don't want to say it's disgusting. He's brutal.
Yeah, let me just add then. So in the book, Virginia states that a prime minister was one of the people who made her realize she needed to get the hell out of the Epstein's orbit. And the reason is this prime minister took her and did all of the things Ryan just described and strangled her so severely, which aroused him, that she passed out and she was injured for days afterwards, and she begged Epstein not to be forced to see this person again, but he did force her to see this person again. And his response was, oh, well, this happens sometimes. So it was that.
It was sick the way he did it too, is he put her on a plane where she cannot go anywhere else. Surprise, it's Ehud Barak again. Now, she doesn't say his name, but that's who it was. We know there aren't that many prime ministers involved. This is the one. She doesn't, other than Prince Andrew and Eppinger, and there's a few she names, but she says like billionaire 1, billionaire 2, a psychologist, a this, a that. We all know, like billionaire 1 is Clin. You know that because he of the time and where they were, and his pregnant wife, which it was Giuffre's ex-girlfriend, by the way. And they had a little kid, a daughter, who they trafficked themselves. It's disgusting. So you can deduce who it is, but I guess the publisher was like, to avoid the headache, or maybe because the mystery actually makes it more like people pay attention to it more. Ooh, who's this? Who's that? Like the psychologist is Marvin Minsky. We know. She describes his little white tough hair and all that stuff. He might not have known that she was forced to do that. It's not clear. I mean, he may have just thought it was a slut or something. Because his next day, he just was like, "Nah, I'm just watching movies, whatever." Like he did enough to be compromised and get his funding and stuff, and then did no more. So,
Ryan, who do you think the 70-year-old prize-winning scientists are?
I just said Marvin Minsky was one of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he got a Nobel Prize.
He's billionaire 1, or he's one of the scientists? Because she said there was a group of scientists. She said there was a group of scientists in the 70s. There was multiple scientists that she was transported to.
Yeah, and she's named those before, but I want to be clear. Let's go slower. The first billionaire she talks about, without naming, but she has named him in the past, is a hedge fund manager, not a scientist. His name is Glenn Dubin. His wife is a former girlfriend of Epstein. Epstein was the godfather of their daughter, who he liked in an inappropriate way, which is the same girls that were described when Bill Gates stayed late in the night with the Dubins and Epstein and said they're a very attractive woman. We stay late in the night. That's what he's talking about. You want to hope he's talking about Abach, but it could have been the kid. And her name is actually, if you look in the confiscated box, there's a picture of a bunch of CDs and things from the New York rape mansion. It's her name, AV, which means adult video, but it's not, she's not an adult, but on CDs. And when you know how young, you can kind of guess at how young she had to at least be for it to be on a CD. Because people that wealthy don't burn CDs after you don't need to burn a DVR or CDR, after the mid-90s. pretty gross.
All right, so Judy's sent some more about Trump. Ryan, I so appreciate your thoughts on whether Trump paid her dad to farm and then called Max to come on over. Virginia certainly does leave some innuendo there.
It's possible, but you wouldn't even need the dad at all, though. You could just offer the daughter a job. But it wasn't even clear she was going to go back home. Like, there was other things that happened is the only reason she started living in a trailer near her father's house anyway. But yeah, Maxwell would go there at the farm. Seemed like it wasn't her first time casing the joint, and she was good friends with Trump. But she spotted her right away. Just saw the blonde hair and skinny and walking around. In the book, they talk about a conversation where the spa is. So she's like at the desk front and talking to her. But I remember her telling me that she actually got out of her car and caught her like near the tennis court, which is adjacent to the spa, and then saw the book she was holding and kind of followed her in there. So that would mean she like knew what time that opened and when they'd be going to work, because she was going to catch her just outside before she even entered the building. She doesn't not say that in the book. She just talks about what the conversation was and where she was. But I distinctly remember her saying it was by the tennis courts and that she had a book about anatomy. Oh, do you like massage? And, and then she walked into the spa with her and she's wearing white and everything else is the same.
Yeah.
I think
what
the
do you think
detail matters though, because it's like Maxwell knew when they're about to go in. It's got to catch them away from other people because there might be other people in the spa. It happened to be slow and nobody, but she wants that conversation as private as possible. So she tried to engage it with her outside.
So I've not heard Dershowitz's name come up. And, this guy.
I can explain that one. Because he's a lawyer that always defends child rapists, including Epstein. And he's also a guy who has changed his story 4 times. Well, I'll skip that for a second. There was like a lawsuit that was dropped against him from Virginia. And Dershowitz was trying to sue her to figure out what she had and couldn't get it. So Mike Cernovich did it on his behalf and took this big victory lap, even though he's on the side of the pedos. But why would you need to know what she has if you're innocent? She couldn't have anything if you didn't do anything. But there's a line from a mail between one of her lawyers and Virginia's lawyers and herself, where the lawyer says, and don't forget Dershowitz. You probably knew him, or you probably saw him. The you is the plural you. See, they never show you what came before that. You meaning you, like y'all, not Virginia, because she's gathering stuff from other victims and who all had seen different people in the house and engaged with different people in the house. And for Virginia, it was so many people, it became kind of a blur. It's the ones that she had repeat visits with and things, or someone you can't forget, like a prince that she was sure about and told on. Some of these scientists, she had no clue who they were. She would how would a 15-year-old know who Glenn Dubin is? Hedge fund managers aren't famous. It's not like Bill Clinton or Bill Gates. That's recognizable. A lot of these people, although they're very wealthy, it's just some old guy that gives you a first name, probably a fake one. So she doesn't even know who she got trafficked to. She figures some of it out later. And it's like, was this one of them? He's the lawyer. And that's what she's trying to figure out. And after winning her case against Andrew, she was kind of done, dropped. And this was affecting her deeply, having her relive this and retell these stories all the time. And she ended up killing herself. So she just got her money and was like, I'm out. Tried to salvage her marriage, live with her kids. That was that. But Dershowitz, he said, and I have this on film, did I get a massage while somebody else, something else was going on in another part of the house? I kept my underwear on. Like, why are you gonna massage in your underwear at your client's house? Like, you're his lawyer. Why are you getting a massage at his house? Then he's very clever with he's very lawyerly. He says, and this is truthful, it's like called double talk. So what he did is he says, I never got a massage at Palm Beach at this year, but the accusation wasn't about a massage in Florida. It was a massage in Ohio at Wexler's property. And so maybe he didn't get a massage in Florida. So he can, as long as he adds in Palm Beach then it's a true statement. But then he morphs to the part where he already said he had a massage and he doesn't really like massage. Oh, I don't even hug people. He did the whole Prince Andrew thing. I don't sweat or drink. Yes, he does. He said, I've only had sex with my wife. I don't even like to hug. It was just a neck and shoulder massage. So he's still saying, yeah, like before you said you kept your underwear on, which implies the rest of, that means everything else was not on. Why else would you say that? And now you're saying it was just a neck and shoulder rub. And then later he said he didn't get it at all, but he made sure that he added the location so that he isn't technically lying, because he said at this place, when that was never the accusation. So when someone's that swarmy and is constantly defending pedos, and he also wrote in Penthouse Magazine an article defending CP. And this is how devoid of empathy and self-absorbed these people are. His argument for why CP is not a crime is because it's just pictures, and so you're not actually doing anything to the kids. Hey, moron, what about the kids in the picture? Somebody's doing something to them that you're watching voyeuristically. But see, that would require you putting yourself in someone else's shoes, which a psychopath can't do. They are incapable of doing that. They just think, but I didn't do it. It wasn't me. Dude, you are giving money to someone else that's doing it. Even if you look at it for free, that it was done. These aren't like AI. These are real children that are, nude. But he tried to defend it, and he argued against age of consent. All of them make this argument. Epstein didn't think he was even wrong. He thought, well, as long as you've had your period, that means nature is saying that you're ready for it. Well, this is good by nature's rules, right? Then why wear shoes? Why have electricity? Why you're breaking nature? Disgusting. Like, oh yes, back in the day, people used to marry 14-year-olds and stuff. Yeah, and about a fifth of them died in childbirth too. We figured out not to do that. Just because you can doesn't mean it works. Oh, disgusting. So that, Dershowitz has changed his story multiple times. He's constantly defending rapists, which is a weird thing to do. He's got an ADL award. He's all tied up with the Israelis, and so is Epstein. So, he wants to call Virginia a liar and all that. Virginia's been vindicated, especially in regards to Prince Andrew. The King Charles, all of them, I guess, they're sick of it. And so I'm going to make this prediction. He's going to get kicked out of the palace, like he's not, or Windsor or whatever. He's not going to live there anymore. I don't think he'll lose his titles, but he won't be allowed to use them. And the difference is he won't use the title Duke of York, for example, or Prince of this and that. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have them. Legally, the Parliament would have, there's a process to get rid of his titles. It's a headache, and he's just going to quit referring to himself with these titles. Whatever, that's not a big loss. Cutting his little salary was a loss, and they already did that. And essentially, why would they do this? Like, why now? It was not because of the book, unless they got an early copy or something. Because just prior to the book coming out, they discovered an email from 2011. So that means if you've seen Andrew's infamous interview that I watch over and over for the unintended comedic value, that's after he, went in person to say we can't be friends anymore. That was in 2010. And so in 2011, he's emailing Epstein saying, we're in this together, and a bunch of other stuff that doesn't need to be repeated. But so they already got that. Then the book comes out, And on 3 different occasions, one where it's an orgy, one in London, one in New York, and one in Little St. Jeffrey's with 8 other girls. And I think if they were to dig into his relationship with Peter Nygard, they would find more of Prince Andrew's victims. Because he cut a vacation with his wife short. Oh, she lost her title too. She doesn't have Fergie or whatever, the ginger. She's done. He cut a vacation short with her to go hang out with Nygard, who's way older than Andrew, by the way. And I don't think he went out to the Bahamas to play foosball. Yeah, I think we all know why people went to Peter Nygard parties. He made the White Room and Diddy look loud. It doesn't get, this cat hit the fan at a Nygard party for real. That's all. This is as much as I can say about those. And he's in jail. Nygard is done. He's in prison. But these guys like him, Robert Miller's another one, they make it into their 80s. They have a whole lifetime of crime before any consequences come down. But Andrew knows all of these people. The Bronfmans, he knows them all. And really, like, as sick as the sexual stuff is with Andrew, look at all the illegal arms deals he's done and pay to play. It's like they really need to relook at all these things from Kazakhstan to Tunisia. The dude is all over the place. And it's just, I don't know. I've brought it up before, but people are most interested in him banging teenagers. Well, yeah, he did that too. And he did it with Virginia 3 times, and now he also plied her with alcohol, which is illegal. In the UK, you can consent when you're 17. But she wasn't. She's being forced to and paid to have sex with him. The fact that a month later he did it in New York, where you cannot consent at that age, already makes it statutory rape, even if she was willing to do it, which she wasn't. Now, he could argue that he didn't know that Epstein and Maxwell made her do it. He has plausible deniability. I just thought we had a good time and I was in. But he knew her age. He guessed it. That's the first thing out of Maxwell's mouth. Guess how old she is? He said 17. So disgusting.
You've got a question about that. So Claudia wants to know, was Maxwell playing Can You Guess Her Age to set people up? Was it a clever way to set people up by saying that?
No, she's just proud of it. Like, you really don't need that, as they have so much on them already. But it's kind of it was fun, like, see how low they could go. Virginia eventually got replaced by a 15-year-old. Before she went to Thailand, they already had her teaching her replacement there on the table. I don't think she was like, hey, admit that she's not 18, or admit she's not, because 17 is legal in the UK. But it was more of like, you're over 40. Well, how old was he? 47 or something, and she's 17. That's bad enough. Why is some 17-year-old American girl in London in your house with a prince? Like, how did she meet him? They completely pimped her out. And this is something Andrew had done before, because he also knew Brunel, and he would go down and play with those guys. Wasn't uncommon. It's kind of sad that Andrew is the one dumb enough to allow a Polaroid picture taken. They broke every rule when they did that, because the first rule is no pictures. The second rule is never on your own property. And this was both, because it was Maxwell's house, Maxwell's bathtub, and one of her bedrooms where it all went down. And they took a photograph. They let her keep it. But I think they thought she had Stockholm syndrome so bad, and they own Palm Beach police. Like, what's she going to do with it?
Well, Andrew was so arrogant. Andrew was so arrogant that he walked around New York with Epstein after the conviction.
Yeah, in Central Park with matching jackets. And then he says, I didn't see it. Okay, here you are pictured with him in the park. Okay, well, I went there to say, can't be friends anymore. As it were, he says. You're such a liar. Like, I have my adrenal glands got messed up in the Falkland War and I can no longer sweat. It doesn't make any sense. It's not how sweat operates. That's
All
his
right,
only I think his pension was from what was that, 79 to 2000 something, whatever, when he was in the Navy for a little bit. I think, dude, you didn't see any real combat. You're a prince. Come on. You walked around with a uniform. You're like when Keir Starmer put on an army helmet and posed in like a wheat field next to some soldiers. What are you doing? Have you seen him hit a punching bag? It's like, yeah. But he did like Zelensky's always like, it got his olive green drab on, like, oh, I didn't have time to put on a suit. I'm at the command table with a bunch of little pieces and a stick, like in the movies. And yeah, I mean, Keir Starmer put on like grease paint and an army helmet and made this picture, and they're like going through some field as if they're, you know, next to the Russians. And it's just some wheat field in Wales, probably, you know, like.
Right, let me just say to the viewers then, we got 1,500 watching live presently across all platforms. I've got Ryan's links, I'll put them in the live chat and they're in the description box, his X and his store. And guys, we're live with Ryan right now, so if you've got any questions about this subject, which just keeps heating up, please put them in the chat. And just for, you know, if you just look at what Ryan said in the last 10, 15 minutes or so.
Oh, well, you see there, those pictures are before the Falkland War incident. That's what he'd say.
So Ryan's covered Dershowitz, who was an advocate for reducing the age of consent, was someone who has defended PDF files and this type of criminal practice. Yeah. You've got the Acosta sweetheart deal, Dershowitz involved in that. So these guys, even if they've not, and that's giving them the benefit of the doubt that they've not participated in the Human Transportation Acts, they are enablers of it. Enablers. This class of people, this network that is at the top of politics in nearly all of our countries, they know what's going on. Prince Andrew
Dershowitz admitted it. Dershowitz said that there are clients, but I have attorney-client privilege and can't say anything. Like you just did. He doesn't care. He's like, what, 84 or something? He doesn't care. Like he's got one foot in the grave. He wants you to know. He wants to rub your nose in it. Well, we already know from the Stacey Plaskett case out of the Virgin Islands that women, plural, were trafficked for commercial sex purposes. So that's already, you have clients. You already have Jess Staley admitting that he pointed the girl that was trafficked to him by Epstein. He kind of had to because it's all in their emails and things. So when they're like, oh, they didn't traffic, they trafficked them all to Epstein and no one else, you know, that's bull, because you already have people who've already been prosecuted, like Andrew and Staley, for them trafficking girls to them. But you also have in the lawsuit, it says it, and you have these huge payouts to all these girls, and you go, oh, they're all just because of him alone. They didn't make this up, man. They pawned them off to their buddies. They brought them to parties. Often it wasn't blackmail. It was more like a reward for like doing business and to continue to do business. Kind of the type of black compromising where you can never leave the gang because if you know, shoot this guy, prove you're not a cop type of thing.
So
it was very interesting because two of the other people that like the senator and the governor, we all know who that is. You know, like Virginia was trafficked to them. And
let's go with transported, Ryan. Let's go with transported.
Transported. Yeah. They transported him. That whole area of Florida has so many of these people. And they just threw out the case on the Tate brothers, by the way, if anybody's been following that. It got no news. It's on like Instagram and X, and that nobody in the mass media covered that all the major charges of the Florida case on Andrew and Tristan Tate were just dismissed. The judge looked at it. His name is Judge G. Makes me think I live in a simulation. They looked at it. This is bogus. It's just like lawfare to make you spend money and time and stress. There was no evidence, just like the Romania case that got thrown out. And then the criminal portion of the UK case has been thrown out. The only thing left is the civil case in the UK. And we don't know whether that'll get thrown out or not. Like, it ought to be. Like, if all these other ones were fake, but this is the real one, and I swear, it's not about that. It's like, can you get a fair shake in the land of digital ID and jailing people over Facebook posts? I'm not sure you can. It makes me worried for them. Like, well, they can just say you did it, and what can you do? The reputation, I mean, Epstein ought to be known as the king of transporting, but instead it's Andrew Tate. And the day Denise George made that lawsuit, she was the AG in the Virgin Islands and got fired over this. When she sued JP Morgan, and they ended up winning that, you know, they got $150 million, or 200. And it was the day they arrested Andrew and Tristan. And if you try to Google about transporting, you know, HT, it only went to that story and not to her story. Everyone owes her a debt of gratitude. Denise George put that in motion, lost her job over it, and those girls got huge payouts over the JP Morgan case. And that's only for them moving his money around and knowing damn well he had hush payments and all these cash payments and what it was for. So they got sued and they lost. And Deutsche Bank got sued and they lost. And these are banks. They have lawyers. They have money. They lost because they're guilty. People suing them didn't have squat other than the truth. But then they want to act like Maxwell, you know, deserves a pardon. That these girls are all a bunch of liars. There are a couple Fruit Loops that are talking about people turning into lizards and whatever. They've kind of found like 2 or 3 of these girls that are just, you know, lost their marbles, and they want to put the camera on them as much as possible. Alex Jones interviewed one of them because it makes all the other girls look ridiculous. But you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, this is a solid case with a mountain of evidence. And these women that weren't even like part of the SA in our word, who just hung out with like as a regular girlfriend, are going around saying crazy stuff, and they got a big payout. You're just hurting the other women with these tall tales, and you shouldn't be saying these things.
So in the book, Virginia does address some of the criticism she's had over the years, including taking money for the first interview with the Daily Mail, because she didn't know, you know, how that would affect her later on. And she also, you know, she describes the psychology as to why she stays with them until the reasons come about why she leaves them. Well, the question for you, Ryan, is, does Virginia state in her book why she stayed with Giuffre and Maxwell?
Yeah, she does. It was a slow process for her. This is if you read her at the beginning of her life, it's just a series of abuse and hard word, and her mother didn't protect her. Her father assaulted her and R-worded her. He'll deny that. Neighbor got her. She'd been broke her whole life to the point like she was skinny because she didn't have enough food. She'd run away from the homes they put her in because those homes abused people. And that is a fact because those homes were shut down for that, for what they did to other kids. So you know that's true. It was kind of, you know, they're professional at grooming. And she felt like all this, these promise like, oh, he'll help you with your future. You can learn a skill. He'll put you through college, blah, blah, blah. 90% of the time, he never went through any of these promises. But when you're that poor and you go into a house like that, the Pepto-Bismol house, and you see their life they live and all, and you're thinking, if I can get even a slither of this, because they've been abused anyway, might as well get paid for it. But it seemed like in the beginning, the first time it happened to her, she was ready to leave. But he put a picture of her little brother on the desk and say, "We know where he goes to school," and that freaked her out. She didn't want Sky getting kidnapped or something. And he also told her, "I own Palm Beach Police," which is a way of saying, don't even think about saying anything that happened in this house to anybody. He didn't seem very worried because he did own the police. He used to pay them through an LLC hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's all it took for them to look the other way. I mean, he had pictures with Clinton, a president, so that she was intimidated. And they go back because Maxwell was really nice in the beginning, bought her a CD and kind of mothered her and did like girls talk with her and stuff at first. So she was trapped. And she really wanted that nurturing figure. Epstein would even have her call him daddy. They would go in the steam room and he would talk to her. He would just unload on her thoughts about this and that. And she just, what is she going to do? Walk away? She just sits there and listens and okay. But always under the, like, why not just throw her on their bed and do it? Like, they always had this pretense of a massage as if, well, we are teaching you how to do massage. Like, you will have a skill out of this that you could use later. And if you hang out with us long enough, we'll change your life. And so it's like dangling that in front of her all the time. And she got no other prospects going on. And anytime she went on her own with anyone else, that's how they treated her. I don't think she thought it would ever be different anyway. So you combine that with the threats on her brother and the fact that she can't really tell on him because he owns the cops. So she had already hyped up, I've got this great opportunity. I mean, she'd met Donald Trump. She'd gotten a job from him and it was fine. It was a normal babysitting job. And she thought, I can get more money working for this guy. He's very rich. He has this big house. And her parents like, how'd it go? What's she going to say? It's not like they cared if she was raped. I mean, they did it to her too. She's got $200 in her pocket. When she made the bad decision to go back, but she knew that they knew where she worked. They could easily get her fired from that job and she'd be stuck again. She knew that they knew her family, that they could get her dad fired too, that they could go after her brother. And so it was a combination of like the carrot and the stick. But psychologically, she would just like zone out on the icky part. She learned to do that early in life. Just take your licks and then you get to some good parts, because her dad would watch a movie with her and do like normal father stuff, but he also did the nasty stuff. And she has no other dad. She has no way out. And so she kind of trained herself early on to just think about other things, count numbers and stuff, and then good will come after. And that's what she did. She would just take the abuse because there was rewards and things mixed in with it and praise and all that. They really messed with her head. But that was still an improvement to her earlier life where it was just abuse and no reward. And those are exactly the kind of girls they would prey on. A lot of them were like passport chicks who were in desperate situations and were doing things for money. But as far as English speaking, like Americans and things, they needed to find runaways. I mean, she pretty much lived with them. They gave her money so she could get her own apartment closer by. But after a while, like, she was living on the island with them. They'd all watch Sex and the City together. And then suddenly she'd have to give a BJ or make out with Sarah Kellen and Maxwell or whatever girls were there. And they already had some regulars before Virginia arrived on the scene. And it's pretty damn clear that they did a plea bargain because none of those girls got in trouble. And I don't think it was just a sweetheart deal, because the other girls would complain about them constantly if that were the case. But if it was a plea bargain, it's like, oh, well, you saved your own butt, but you testified against Epstein and Maxwell. But, you know, it was a mixed bag. Not everybody that was in that group was like a grooming victim. There were some people that just wanted money and didn't mind effing people and lived that life and then still got a payout anyway. Like, oh yes, it was so traumatizing. Some of them were in on it, went out, actively recruited other girls, got more money. Some of them loved Giuffre too. They really did. They just thought, this is great. What a great deal. All I have to do is jack this guy off and do this and this sometimes. And, you know, I'm living the high life. And there are people who don't realize what they're doing to themselves, especially young girls, that just think this is a good deal. They don't understand, like, they're not going to ever have like real relationships later in their life, and what they're doing to their brain. All that, they just think, oh, this is good money. But in her case, it was, they got her when she was young and abused, and they groomed her. And they mastered that craft. They knew exactly who to pick. There were a lot of girls that went there once and ran off. There were a lot of people that did not stay. Probably the majority of them went in, saw them flip over, was like, and ran. But the ones who would stay, if you would stay through that process, then they knew, like, you must really need money or really need nurturing, or you'd get out of here. And those are the ones that they would call, they'd say, you're a keeper. Oh, you went through it, you went through all the rituals, you're a keeper. And then they make them feel special, be like, oh, you're better than all the other ones. They're like, you didn't reject them, they rejected you. They ran away because you're disgusting. Well, the ones that would stay thought, I must be better at this than everyone else. That's why they're picking me. That's why they're keeping me. It's like, no, you're one of the few people that will tolerate this because you've been so abused before. This doesn't register to you as how horrible it ought to be. Because, like, for Virginia, compared to her past, it was pretty mild. Until
and these people
started doing his friends that choked her and beat the crap out of her. I mean, that was worse, but
yeah, these people are out there who are criticizing Virginia and saying she had a choice to leave. It was her own decision. Either just sickos or completely have no clue of her past. Imagine from age 6 to 7, your dad and his buddy are doing the most disgusting things to you regularly, year after year. What is that going to do to your mind? You disassociate, you fracture.
Fred, her brother too. Like that alone will be enough. Like, she's just admitting in her book, like, she doesn't want anything to happen to her brother, so she's gonna come back. But in her head, like, later through the process of grooming, she's saying, I started to, like, she started to get addicted to the praise and all because she needed it so badly. When they're like, you did a good job, and she felt like a sense of self-worth and esteem, like, I actually am wanted by someone, I actually belong to somebody. And sadly, she never did. They just used her for S.
Yeah, all right.
I get that criticism, like, why didn't you run? Well, a lot of them did.
So I just watched Andrew Loney on Dan Wootton, and he's calling for Prince Andrew's arrest. I think Prince Andrew could end up in jail. And one of the things he's talking about as well is that Prince Andrew, it's been ascertained now, that he's alleging that Prince Andrew was part of dirty smear campaign against Virginia. We've seen Lady Victoria Hervey. You know, Piers Morgan loves getting her on for some reason to just throw her vomit out there. Lady Victoria Hervey trolled Virginia's car accident and even trolled Virginia's death.
She 180'd on that afterward and said, oh, it's tragic, because someone got in her ear and said, this looks bad. Do some damage.
So you mean she did a fake apology, you mean?
Yeah, basically she lied. Look, they have the 2011 email between Andrew and Epstein. They got him. He's pictured with her. He definitely did it. And he's done this multiple times. And you could find a litany of crimes. I could dig in and give you a big list of things he's done aside from the kitty fiddling that he ought to go to jail for. But you also have Andrew saying to a bodyguard, a police that, you know, he has his personal little staff. I think they pay like $3 million a year for this stuff, or Charles did, to try to dig up some dirt on Giuffre. Like, his way out of this is like, let's find something on her. So disgusting. It's like, buddy, she didn't make this up. Y'all met You did you did go to New York. You did go to Edo Island. You did meet in Maxwell's house. You're photographed with her. A whole bunch of people saw you at the club together, Tramp or whatever it was. And he had the reputation of Randy Andy for a reason. Put little cameras in his teddy bears that he wouldn't let anybody touch because he had them all angled the right way. The dude is weird and definitely a crook. He got a foot fetish. That right there. No, he's got a lot of things wrong with him, and it's not because he can't sweat. He's a compulsive liar, and the Royals know it. They know if we don't cut him off, it's going to affect the reputation of the rest of them. They know he's guilty. That's why they like, get rid of your titles. That this isn't some stunt because the public, for no reason at all, has this pressure of these rumors from it. Oh man, they know what you did, and they know that you were communicating with Epstein after you said you were not, because they have the emails. 2 emails actually in 2011.
We've got a good question here from G. Sawyer, and that is, I wonder why the media only focuses on Prince Andrew, quiet on Clinton, Gates. Why is the establishment making Andrew a fall guy? I'm wondering that as well, because it is all the headlines, all the YouTube videos, everywhere. It's all Prince Andrew, Prince Andrew, Prince Andrew. There's so many more people. She said there was a multitude.
I think in the UK it's more on Andrew because he's over there, but in the US they did kind of make a fuss about Bill Clinton, but not as much as the Prince, because the Prince got sued and had a settlement, so he lost. But Clinton's name is a verb that means suicided. Like, you don't talk about the Clintons, you'll get Seth Rich, you'll get Vince Fostered, you'll get both of them, because Hillary likes to munch the carpet. I'll say it, whatever, and I've been saying it about all these people, but the mass media is not going to touch the Clintons. That's real power. That's not. A long time ago, we used to have monarchy. Like, that's not the power. The power of the UK is the parliament, the prime minister. It's not the princes and the kings and stuff. And the power of the US is the presidency, and Clinton had that, and he had the FBI and everything else. So, and it's also that a lot of the donors and stuff involved in that, because a lot of Epstein's power was money laundering. This is like the unspoken portion, what he did. And the Clintons, with the Clinton Foundation, had a very similar operation, also out of the Caribbean, Haiti in particular, where Frank Giuffre, who's this Canadian money washer, would help them launder money through the Clinton Foundation. And Epstein was playing a game like this through Bear Stearns and Liquid Funding Limited he made. I've been over it with Shaun like years ago. I went over all the technical stuff that was probably boring but really important. It was like the second interview we did. So you have to remember all that. Clinton's got stroke. And the other thing is because the U.S. is kind of bifurcated between Republican and Democrat, a lot of Democrats just don't want to talk about Clinton because it makes them all look bad. They will say Trump, 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 Trump. Like, Trump's name is probably in the news more related to Epstein than Clinton's. When Clinton already had a litany of accusations from the time he was governor in Arkansas to Monica Lewinsky when he was president, and afterward, like ad nauseum, and yet it's Trump, 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 Trump. But that's because the media hated Trump. And they shot him. I mean, this Trump derangement, they tried to throw him in jail. I don't like Trump's policies, but definitely he has gotten flack from the media more than the Clintons, because Clinton just did everything they wanted. Trump strays on a couple issues, and that's enough to make him go nuts.
All right. Let's see. Oliver's mum. Ryan, what do you think happened to all of the physical media DVDs taken from Epstein's place? And this leads us to also the Florida place and what Virginia said about Joseph Recurry. Like, we reported on him before, but we learned a lot more from the book.
I imagine those CDs went up in smoke. If you think there's a file the FBI sitting on, like, no, there isn't. Christopher Wray got rid of that. And they're so naive, him, but it's on my desk. No, it's not. I said that when they were all promising these things, I sat there with my arms crossed, said, you aren't going to get anything. You're just going to get stuff we already have. You're not going to get anything new because that evidence is gone. In fact, one of the boxes of DVDs disappeared for a day, and then Darren Endyke brings them back. I'm sure they didn't mess with them at all. Here they are. Oops. How that happened. And another box of evidence in the Maxwell's trial was Sergeant Dawson, no relation, who was from Florida and had to come up to New York. His final bit of testimony was going to be on a box of something that they found, and they said they didn't need it. They said, well, we didn't want him to come all the way back from Florida to New York just for that. Yeah. This is like the biggest trial since O.J. Simpson. You do need him to come back from Florida to talk about that, because that box, what is the most incriminating thing? This is not a box of sex toys or something. This is a box full of recordings, and they didn't let him talk. I mean, it kind of got out on the internet anyway what it was, but they wouldn't let him talk. Like, this is damage control. They arrested him because he was getting to John Gotti, getting out of control, and was about to, sink himself again for the second time. So they went and arrested him, confiscated his stuff, got rid of evidence, and replaced him with a new Epstein. He could not be allowed to continue his operations, and because he was too sloppy. I mean, the Israelis, they didn't. You're supposed to be spying on science and technology, and you're supposed to use honey traps, but you're not supposed to dip into your own stash. And he definitely was. So they got rid of him, just like they got rid of Maxwell's dad. He tried to blackmail the blackmailers, and he took a swim naked in the Canary Islands off his own boat.
So speaking of physical media then, in the book, Virginia states all of her original photos were given to the FBI, and she never got any of them back. And when she was getting interviewed by the feds, her husband was there, and they were asking for all these details, and her husband freaked out on him because he wasn't aware that these things had happened to her, and it caused a big beef in the family. But just going back to the chain of evidence again.
Yeah, and he's a martial artist too. Like, he probably wanted to break some necks, but
yeah, he wanted to break the dads. Yeah. But going back to the chain of evidence, with Joseph Recurry, he was one of the good Florida cops. And Joseph Recurry was found mysteriously dead in his 50s, in perfect health, worked out, in good shape. And he was pushing and pushing and pushing for Epstein to be held to the account to the fullest. He told his colleagues that with the evidence they seized, it wouldn't see the light of day if it got handed to the higher-ups. And in Virginia's book, she adds a lot more detail about Joseph Recurry and his plight to get Epstein fully prosecuted. They do this sweetheart deal and don't tell the survivors there's going to be no trial. This is all like done
the
in
Gary Kirscher fiasco. And that, like, I do want people to buy her book, to her family or something, like her brother, maybe this guy. But yeah, that's not shocking. It ought to be. But, when Maria Farmer told the FBI in, 96? How long did that take before they acted? And it was kind of surprised what a 14-year-old in Florida, finally, her parents get hold of the right people and get the ball rolling. And they just find out how many are involved in this. The sweetheart deal should never have been made. They didn't even consult with the victims or the victims' parents, because a lot of the victims aren't even adults. It never should have happened. He just gets like one count of child P, which is R, because children can't consent. And everyone knows the rest. 6 days a week he's on work leave, just kind of spends the night there. He's got all these. Jess Staley visits him. Ehud visits him. Like, some of his biggest clients go visit him in jail dozens of times, which is hard to do since he ain't in jail except once a week. That's pretty much every Sunday that they're talking to him. Make sure he doesn't say anything to anybody. And he actually fled to Israel. That was the first thing Epstein did, is he fled, and they told him to go back. Like, you were going to get this deal. do a little bit of time, getting to restart the operation. But often what pedos do is they flee to Israel and then there's no extradition and they just live another life over there. And they don't care. There is no, like the Israelis have no moral qualms about raping goy. So that is often what they do. Y'all can Google this, pedo flee to Israel. It's just a common thing. Like, I'll just go there. And you can get away with it. Their own state employees involved. In fact, we talked about Ehud Barak, was a prime minister. Well, the president during his prime ministership was Moshe Katsav, and he R-worded 4 different people and went to jail. That's the president of Israel. Did you know the president of Israel R-worded people and went to prison? Probably not, unless you listen to me, because there was no media. Can you imagine if that had been the president of anywhere else? It would be everywhere. Nope.
Total media blackout. Total media blackout.
And
also the relation
up a girl's nose and pinned her on the wall, and yeah.
Also, Epstein's relationship with Tony Blair. I mean, Mandelson has suffered some consequences, but Blair has been kept out the loop. It's like, if you're at a certain
Blair
level,
used to bang other people's wives. And he wants to be like administrator of Gaza, dude. How?
Oh my God.
Him and Bush did the Iraq War. Like, that guy is the devil.
5 million dead on their hands, collateral damage. So Maria's asking, where is the money going from the sales of Virginia's book? And I've Googled it, and I'll just read what it says. While details on the distribution of proceeds from Virginia's book have not been fully disclosed, the public statements and the circumstances of the book's publication offer some insight. She herself planned to use funds from a legal settlement with Prince Andrew to help victims. The book was also co-authored, which suggests co-author Amy Wallace will receive a portion. So with a book like this, the publisher will receive most of the money, and then the royalties would go, I imagine, to Virginia's estate. I don't know if that's kids, husband, etc. But the stuff with the husband as well, it's, again, she's juxtaposing these happy times of a family, but in the back of my mind is all the stuff that she's alleged against the husband. It's like, no, she's got no respite from trauma wherever she turns.
He wasn't as bad as the other ones, but her children turned out they're doing well. I mean, so up to their teen years, she mothered them well, and they seem to be well adjusted, fully functional, doing great in Australia, and they'll get some of the money, and her co-author should get some money, and ought to. She co-authored the book. And some will go to these like charities she set up for battered women and whatnot. And I'm not sure she was even cared about money for herself. She already got a pretty fat lawsuit from Andr and didn't need it. So it was just like writing the book to tell her story. That was all.
All right, folks, we've got
she'd been abusing Xanax for a long time, and that came out in the book too. Like, that was part of the coping mechanism, and that's kind of why you stay, is because you just haze through it anyway.
All right, folks, we've got 2,000 watching live with Ryan. I've just put his links in the chat again. We've got 20 minutes left to get some final questions in for Ryan. And did Virginia have custody of her children? I think they were with the husband, weren't they? Because didn't he filed against her when she filed against him about domestic violence?
See, at first there was an incident in Colorado where she put a restraining order on him, and they ended up working that out. But then later in Australia, he put one on her, and she was so distraught. Her kids were like 18, 17, 15 or something, but so one of them was an adult, but she couldn't see them on Easter, and it was just tearing her up. And when she got in a car accident and then went to the hospital, and they discovered her kidneys were shot, not because of the car accident. The car accident was why she went to the hospital. Her kidneys were shot because she'd been abusing painkillers for so long. And so she's like, I don't have long to live, and still couldn't see her kids. And that destroyed her. And that's why she overdosed.
Yeah, really sad.
She did not have them.
Yeah. All right, let me see. GC, Piers Morgan had Virginia's father on the show. He should have done his research before giving father. Well, to be honest, Piers Morgan probably would not have known about the allegations against the father because Virginia just said a family member had done something to her. She saved the full disclosure for the book. So many of us have only just learned the extent of what happened, the allegations, and that it was a father and Uncle Forrest. So I don't think Piers would have had a chance to find that out.
No, she hadn't said anything about it until it comes out there, and it's a hard thing to do to say that about your own dad. It's like either she's a total compulsive liar or an abuse victim. Now with Epstein and Maxwell, we have receipts because they did to so many other girls. So it's like Virginia is telling the truth about this. And you can corroborate it because I listened to a lot of these girls because I found a bunch of fake ones because that happens every time someone famous is accused of anything. There's all me too, me too, me too. But she could describe the interior of all the houses and things. She'd definitely been in there, definitely be living. Why do you have a teenager living with you for any reason? She knew the Dubins. She knew like things lined up, and her story is backed up by Epstein's own employees, chefs, limo drivers, pilots, and so on. So it's not just like her word versus theirs. She has a story, and it's corroborated by other employees, emails, communications between Epstein and his clients and stuff. All fits the timeline, and then photographs and things. So like this is truthful. So I don't think like, oh, she was abused then, but the other time she's talking about it, well, those are made up. I don't think so. I think she got in that situation, and her brother and others can also speak on this. It's not just like, of course, her dad's going to say I didn't do anything, but no one else agrees. So, he's going to say that. Why not?
And there's just certain things in the book that she describes that I don't think she could possibly make up. And for example, she's having a conversation with her husband about their preferences in the bedroom. And she says there's certain things I cannot do because my father did these to me when I was a kid, and it just comes to my mind, if I attempt to do these things. So you got a question from Nita. Does Ryan think her husband was a setup by Epstein?
I don't think so. They sent her to Thailand to look for a particular girl, actually. And then she's just going to fall for the first guy that's nice to her. And she often says big brown eyes for all her prior boyfriends and stuff. She had a type. She kind of picked him. Saw him doing Muay Thai. Well, I assume it's Muay Thai because it was Thailand. Saw him doing martial arts in a ring. He kept getting distracted by her and all, but like he was already there, already training to be fighting. Like Epstein would have to have planted that a long time prior to sending her there, and then hope they meet. And I don't think so. I think they just met there.
Elizabeth wants to know what your hat says.
It says like talented person.
David wants to know, can you explain Maxwell's Terramar project, please?
It was an oceans charity, but the reason she had an oceans charity was a pretext to get her into the UN. Because that's what they do. A lot of wealthy people do this. They'll have some unassailable good, like cleaning the ocean, protecting the environment, trees or whatever, or some children is this and that fun. But what it allowed her to do, the irony is her father died in the ocean, is it let people buy plots of the ocean, which is kind of weird because the ocean is nobody's, but this is how they are. And they're supposed to clean it up, but it got her to the UN 9 times. So, I'm here to talk about the Terramar project, which, by the way, has not done any real cleanup. And now she gets to rub elbows with everybody at the UN and go to the little after parties and bring her models and stuff with her. That was the way. Like, set up a charity, and that lets you get to talk to all the important people about this thing. And a lot of people donate to charities too, as to lower their taxes. Like, not because they care. They're like, we have to donate to something so I get out of this tax bracket and get lower income tax. That's why a lot of them do it. That's why people adopt too. A lot of celebrities, they like adopt a kid right after they make a big movie and make a lot of money that year. They adopt a kid and just have some nanny raise it, because you have no income tax in the United States if you adopt a baby.
Wow.
So if you're making hundreds of millions of dollars, let's say Mr. and Mrs. Smith, then, you know, Brad and Jelena might want to adopt a kid and pay no income tax. It is an incentive.
I can't remember what Naomi was what she mentioned.
Briefly, like she was at a party. They mentioned her, I think it was her birthday or something, or somebody's birthday, and she was at the party. I read this book so fast, like I read the whole thing. I usually read things slower and digest them, but I don't know if I could read this again. It was so horrible.
All right, 10 minutes left with Ryan, folks. Get your final questions in. Don't forget to subscribe to his X and support his store. So Rosie wants to know, what is your opinion, re the bus driver who apparently was in the car crash with Virginia, stating that it was not that bad in relation to a significant bruising in a hospital photo? Wasn't the bruising allegedly from her husband beating her up?
You don't bruise instantly. You don't know how much bruising she had anyway, and she just took her makeup off or whatever. The car accident, the bus accident wasn't that bad. It could have been way worse. What people got wrongly assumed, and I understand why they would assume this, because it's very like rational thought to think, oh, you didn't get hit so hard your kidneys died or whatever. No, there was they hit the side of a car, whatever. They make you go to the hospital because you were in a car accident, so they're going to just check you out. And serendipitously, because he was in a car accident and doctors looked at her, they discovered how bad her kidneys already were from the drugs, not from the accident. The bruises, I mean, how bad would you like them to be? Like, those are bruises. She didn't punch herself in the face. You don't instantly bruise. And, because the rest of her body's failing, people bruise differently too. A lot of thin people get bruises and don't even know where they came from. Just like, I don't know, just have that on my arms and legs. Like, I used to get bruises. So how did that happen? I'm like, I don't know. Didn't even feel it. It doesn't even hurt. So who knows? But it did hit the side of the car, so she may have slammed her face in the door or whatever. Who knows? But no one was killed. No bones were broken. Nothing serious. It was just that the doctors discovered how bad her kidneys were, I guess, from a blood test. And they do that toxicology and make sure, even though she was the passenger, they want to make sure nobody's drinking or whatever. And then, oh, look at this. Your kidneys are dying. And she said, I'm going to die soon. And it made sense. I mean, the way she abused drugs and did Xanax and painkillers and all that. And I talked to an EMT that was there. She lived in a ranch north of Perth, just surrounded by animals, nobody really there. He didn't even, she's not that famous in Australia. This is big news in like the UK and America. They didn't even know who she was, just some lady. But she had a whole empty bottle of painkillers. And the reason I dug into that is, you're dealing with people who will kill people. So you got to rule that out. Like, was this really a suicide? Yes, it was. But I had to ask. I had to go and hear it from people on the scene, because there are a lot of people that would like to shut her up. It's kind of late. She sort of told her story. She had this book out, I guess, but taking her out would just bring more attention, not less, to the Epstein affair. So it's not something you want to do. But with her marital affairs and all the abuse in her life, she was coping with prescription drugs. And her last message on Instagram was just a black square with a broken heart emoji. And the one before that was a song. I forget the artist, but the song is called Somebody That I Used to Know. It's a breakup song. And that was it. I think she poured everything into her husband. Like, he was her savior. And so this is not really his fault, but if he deviates from her at all, she's going to lose it, because that's the only thing that kept her together. And so if he even starts to be argumentative or whatever, she's like, here it comes again, you know?
Right, I've got a question for you now, but I just want to do a quick poll on it. So put a 1 in the chat if you think Virginia would be upset with Trump transferring Maxwell to a cushy prison. Put a 2 in the chat if you think Virginia would not be upset with Trump. She would view Trump as playing 5D chess against the Illuminati, and the sun continues to shine out of his posterior. And we'll ask, while that comes in, we'll ask Ryan the same question. What would Virginia have thought of Maxwell being transferred to a cushy prison?
She did not like Maxwell. In fact, a lot of the girls said she was worse than Giuffre. But you know why Trump did that. You know, she got in, and then they only after that did they go and interview her. She's like, "Oh no, Trump's the greatest guy in the world," whatever, and just lied. His donors are all on that list. Have some of them on the wall right there, but I have a notebook. Oh, here we go. I have the actual Epstein file right here, and a lot of Trump's guys are on this. And so he can't. There's a list of names. There's another list of more names. This one's in pencil, so it doesn't show as well. But here's the files. 3 pages of names. And constantly, like over time, like Ehud Barak gets popped or Jess Staley gets popped or whatever, like they're already in there and they're already up there. Peter Thiel's right in the middle, by the way. Constantly, as they find a new name or find new evidence, I've already had it and I've already publicized it. So I have a lot of confidence that the other names that haven't been said yet will be said, and that they're definitely on there. It's just, they're too powerful. Like nothing's going to happen. And if you're trying to get they haven't even released all the files on JFK. You're not going to get it on Epstein. I mean, they just genocided a population in front of the whole world without consequence. That's Sodom and Gomorrah. They just obliterated Khan Yunis in Gaza, children, everything. They found a mass grave of over 100 people in Gaza 2 days ago. Imagine a mass grave of 100 Jews and it not being on TV. Would never happen. But with Gaza, it's like they're not human beings. Over 100. These are just dead. This is not Hamas. This is all age. Most of them are kids. So if that doesn't move the needle, a couple of grapey grapes here and there, and some rich people, you know, with doing inappropriate things with children, like at least they didn't kill them. Israel just wiped out cities full of people. Doesn't matter. Trump gives them money. So did Biden. That's what you have to fix. Because behind this whole thing is them. There would not have been a Maxwell or his daughter or an Epstein without that state. It would not.
Which is why both parties protect the vested interest, which is the donor class, which is why the files are not getting released by either Democrats or Republicans. Right, we've got 4 minutes left, folks, before I've got a podcast with Dave Gunn, Bestwood Cartel boss, come in.
Maybe I need to talk to Thomas Massey, like bring the list and sit down, but I don't have that access. You know, like if somebody good in government would just sit down with me.
Get your final questions in. Does Ryan have contact with Virginia's brother?
I wouldn't say if I did.
Well, what does Ryan think of the O'Keefe undercover video of John Ryan blabbing?
I like all the undercover O'Keefe videos. Some of those things, though, when you get a government employee who's trying to impress some girl or guy, because it's both of them, they don't actually have any inside information. They just say the same things everyone else has heard on the internet, but they want to act like I'm in the government. So wink, wink. I know. He's CIA. He's this. He's that. They don't know. They're not privy to that. Unless you're getting officer level position, these scrubs aren't told anything.
So Virginia's last name was Roberts, then it became Giuffre.
Yeah, you guys are, it's Maria Farmer and Anna Farmer. They messed up her middle name. They said it's like Louise or something. Her middle name is Lee. Wikipedia has it wrong. Wikipedia's got a lot of things wrong.
Maria wants to know, how did you get the list?
I compiled it by listening to the victims and the employees of Epstein and listened to who they said was there. Like, it's, how else would you get it? Gee, who R-word you? This person, this person, this person. Okay, and then I go through. So it's a combination of, well, there's a lot of it's in the court records from all the lawsuits from the banks, the Virgin Islands, and so on. A lot of it's victims' testimony. They will tell you who it was. And then you can corroborate that with other statements from employees of Epstein or employees of the clients. So like Jess Staley's own people around him told on him too, and his own emails, and the girls. So he's cooked. And that's just, there wasn't like a list sitting in a locker somewhere like, oh, you have to make the list the hard way by doing years of research and gathering these things and figuring out who did what. Ehud Barak filmed outside the mansion, going in and out. You knew he was messing with them. And then when you have victims say Ehud Barak was messing with me, like, it all connects together. And you do need like more than one data point, because guess what? People lie. So especially young women, like, especially when they're getting paid a lot of money. Oh, now they're all part of it, and all this guy, that guy, that guy. The one, I was hearing things before he got arrested, and a lot in the between the two arrests, when this was not a famous case, and that's when you had to gather the most information. Now, so much information's out that it's hard to know who's telling the truth and who isn't. Because I could say, okay, what color is the massage table that you're on every day? If they don't know it's green, then they lied. But now they can look that up. So they go, green. Okay, well, how many floors are in the house? That's something you definitely would know if you've been in there. Well, now they can look that up. Like, before, I could grill these girls in these questions and know exactly who was full of shit and who wasn't. Now, I still have, I'm not going to tell you what they are. I got a question list as a way to verify. But I don't want to see what the questions are, because they'll figure out then, and then, you know, you get it. But there is still a way to verify, and I will absolutely like call someone out who's just grifting and who's read other people's stories and adopted them as their own and all that, and you can tell. And you know, like Maria Farmer is solid on this. She's livid too, and she didn't really get much payout. And doesn't care. She'll just she'll say it. She'll say who it was. She'll tell you. And I'll say, like, how can you prove this in any way? Is there someone else that was there, or someone else you told back then? And go through it all the best to your ability. And if I have enough confidence, then they go on the list. And if I don't, they go on another list. I have a maybe list also, but I don't mess with that because it might be wrong. If they're on that list, I'm pretty sure they did it. I have enough data points, enough people saying this person, this time, da, 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 da. That's how I got the list. And it might not be perfect. I could be wrong.
We'll have to stop here, Ryan, because we've got the next show starting. But huge thank you for coming on, brother. I urge people to support Ryan at his store and also follow him on X. There's the links. And hope to see you again soon, my friend. And go rest your eyes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shaun. Always great opportunity to show. Guys, if you go to my X, click on that pinned tweet, because I got a new movie out.
Yeah, indeed, dude.
It is. It's got something to do with that map there. You should see it.
All right, brother, I'm going to let you go. Thank you. Cheers.
Peace.
Cheers. All right, so we've got Bestwood Boss, Dave Gunn, podcast part 2 starting now, folks. If you're interested in a true crime podcast, when I finish this one, it will take you